Welcome to the Aligned Powerhouse, the podcast for executive women who are done leading from burnout and ready to rise from alignment. I'm your host, Dr. Brittany McGeehan, licensed psychologist, high performance and mindset coach, and guide for high achieving women who are ready to lead, live, and love without abandoning themselves. Here, we unpack the nervous system truths, mindset shifts, and emotional patterns that drive your leadership so you can build power from the inside out. Let's get into it. All right. Hello, everyone. Okay. We are at the time that this episode will be recorded or will be airing. We are entering 2026. Now, I personally feel that setting annual goals, projections, KPIs, numbers for Q, I feel like that is every high performing woman's Super Bowl. Like nothing gets us going like a good goal and a good number. Okay. And so this conversation is stemming from a lot of the conversations I'm hearing in the various containers where I am currently serving clients, right? A lot of it is based around everyone is having their annual audits. Everyone is having their annual goal setting retreats. I love one of my dear friends has an annual yearly planning retreat with her husband every single year. They talk about it consistently. And this is one of my best friends. They live down the street and it's two engineers who are in a marriage together. And so like planning is the name of their game and they crush it. And I believe that there's a lot that can be learned here, but I also know that the planning process, if it is happening at a weekend retreat, is fantastic, but every single high performing woman this time of the year is thinking about, what do I need 2026 to look like? What do I want 2026 to look like? And here's the really exciting thing to me as I'm sitting and I'm watching trends that are evolving and coming out of the literature that is specific to especially women in leadership, executive leadership. They're sitting up there in like C-suite or even just sort of like an executive land, right? Where you are truly sitting in leadership and need to master your own regulation. Like we are seeing, I think it was Deloitte and Inc. magazine were talking about this phenomenon of the great downshift. And I get so jacked reading about these stats and what is going on right now, because what we are seeing is that there is a massive reprioritization right now in our culture of women not accepting that they have to be everything and do everything. Obviously, I'm biased because this is my industry, this is my field, this is where my heart is at in terms of serving people, is like, I think you should have the biggest, baddest life that you want to have, and it should serve you in the season that you are in. So I get excited from that perspective, but also, culturally in terms of trends, and a lot of people don't want to hear this, but like we swing in extremes, right? Now, every time you swing, eventually you get closer to landing in the middle. So anytime I see any sort of swing to an extreme, I get a little bit excited because I know that we as a culture are that much closer to finding whatever balance or middle ground it is that we're eventually going to land on. So if you are the business owner, the corporate baddie who is sitting down and you're sort of having your little reminiscent moment, and I don't know exactly what day this is going to air because I always say I'm such a passenger princess in my business. I love to yap. I love to think. I love to talk to people. Please let me be the brand. And I have the most phenomenal operations team that are like, ride or die, but they hold details. They hold details is what I am saying. So I don't know. I know there's a plan. I know it's coming. Oh gosh, like third, fourth week of, like, is there a fourth week in December? I don't even know, but I know it's happening in December. And so here's the image I have in mind, okay, as I'm like sitting down, I've got my little tea over here. It's literally right in front of me as I'm reaching around my desk trying to find it. It is, just in case you want to know, it is like lemon and ginger It's supposed to be good for like probiotics or whatever. Honestly, I ran out of lavender and mint. I'm not a big ginger fan, but I'm like, do it for the health. And I'm just imagining that you are in your Christmas cozy socks. The Christmas tree is still up. Maybe we're watching like a holiday rom-com for the millionth time. Maybe we just did. Maybe you're sitting down with the hot chocolate. Love that for you. I don't know. But like, I'm just picturing this very cozy environment that we are sitting down together. Okay. And I want you to bring me along on this journey of you sitting down with your goals, because before you sit down, we're going to set some regulated goals for 2026. Okay. We're going to walk through that together. That's what we're doing. At the end, I've got like a few exercises, ideas. You know who I am. You know who I am. If you are here, there's going to be some tactical takeaways, but really purpose being that like, if there was ever a time, gosh, I got to tell you, like I run. So one of the containers that I run behind the scenes that I don't push publicly, because I've got massive control issues, specific when it comes to my group containers, right? I care a lot about the dynamics that are going in there. And if you know me, you know that I dance with like surrender and trusting the process with, I know the formula that gets us the goals that we need to get. I know how to get there. I am willing to have uncomfortable conversations in order to control that a little bit, right? Anyway, this is a container I run behind closed doors. It's called the Diamond Society, and it is made up of high-performing women who are incredibly dedicated to this work, are working to build healthier, intimate friendships, relationships, and they're functioning in very high-pressure environments. It's not a container that I open up to the public. It is one that honestly has like given me a lot of grief, because I knew who I wanted in there and I knew who I didn't want in there. So there was a lot of playing with pieces there, right? Anyway, as we're sitting in these spaces, a lot of these women are thinking through and like truly in the trenches whenever it comes to renegotiating what it is they're willing to do and not willing to do at work, in their marriages, in their parenting relationships, and all of this, like they're doing together. So it's really beautiful and it's really cool. But it is part of what has inspired this episode, is just people in my life, time of the year, warm cozies. But I feel like warm cozies for a high performing woman is like, ooh, let's sit down and think about our revenue projections and our financial forecasting and our KPIs that we want to hit in Q1 and Q2. Like, and these are my people, okay? And then also sometimes we go to the beach and we relax and we do those things, but we are who we are. So if this is you, you are in the correct spot. So first of all, let's talk about something I see is that we can have conversations that are regulated as we're talking. But what I see is a shift that happens whenever a high performing woman actually goes to open up her data from 2025 and projects it into 2026. There's something about like opening the laptop and being exposed to the data that can evoke a little bit of fear or pressure that can pull us out of alignment. So this is the first thing I kind of want to unpack here and address is I want you, if this is something that you struggle with, I want you to get very curious about where does this come from? Because I will tell you specifically what I see in my audience is that they crush their goals, right? They get the promotion, they like double the revenue, God, which is honestly like a really challenging thing to do on pay. It's usually a mess behind closed doors. Not always, but sometimes. It's just a really big leap and transition to be able to tolerate, right? But so we do this, and then the inevitable question that shows up is like, what is next? And part of what I find so exciting about this trend that we're seeing of women, just they're figuring out how to downshift and what exactly does that mean to them. What we don't see is a massive loss or void that is happening. What we see is that there's a cultural trend toward women building their teams at home and at work. They're asking for more support and they're reevaluating, do I actually need to be working 60-hour work weeks? Because, oh my gosh, that's not sustainable. They're deciding, what does my next level actually look like based on the goals for my family, my marriage, and my career? Because I friggin' want it all. And here is an underlying reality that has been true and I think can be very sneaky, is that a lot of high achieving women do not actually feel safe in their success. This is what fuels the burnout that we have been seeing, perhaps that you are like finding yourself stuck in. And maybe it's part of what comes to mind is you're sitting down with your goals and you're like, okay, what do I want next year to look like? Well, I don't know, but I can tell you what I don't want it to look like, right? Like, if you are continually trying to earn your safety or your good enough or your success, you are forever going to be chasing it, right? I mean, so really what I want to give you, like the real reason that we are having this conversation is I really want to shift. I want to help you shift into regulation and alignment before you sit down with, here's my new strategy, or here's the one habit I'm going to build into 2026, or here's my additional goal I'm going to add, because this is the entire premise behind what I do and why I say I am peak performance in relationships and leadership. If they had a baby, right? That is what I do, is truly your next level is about building capacity. It's about building spaciousness. It is about, how do I tolerate ease? How do I tolerate joy in life rather than getting buried in the hustle? And I want to be very clear. I believe in hustle. I believe in seasons of sprint. I just don't think there's any other way around it. But I do not believe in living there. And I also believe you can want more. You can want more out of life, out of your relationship with your kids, out of your marriage, your career. You can want to build revenue, and you can feel like you have made it already, as is exactly where you are. You can feel like you are absolutely content exactly where you are. That is when you climb 3-4 rungs at a time on the corporate ladder. That is when you jump from 7 to 8 figures. Okay. That takes capacity, not hustle. So let's really unpack this first idea here. Why high performing do not feel safe in their success, despite whatever it says on paper. And like, what's actually going on here, right? Because I will tell you, if you have this number in your head, and we all freaking do this, we all do, myself included, right? When I hit this number, like, this is the number I'm driving at, I'm driving toward. And again, I want you to have a goal, but do not don't confuse that. Don't conflate that with the same idea as that is when I will be successful. Okay. Typically, what happens for a high-performing woman is she's been raised in an environment where she was praised when she was like crushing it, when she was making the goal, when she was getting the A, when she was sitting first chair in band, whatever it was. She was praised for performance, and her nervous system learned to associate this with connection and safety. That is the world that she was primed in. What happens then is that your nervous system doesn't actually recognize success as safety. It recognizes it as pressure. So here's what happens is that achievement is based in adrenaline. Leadership is actually developed from the space of hypervigilance, which honestly, they go hand in hand anyway. If your job is to like control the outcomes, bolster the team, do all of the things at once, you are literally putting your brain into hypervigilance anyway. And as you gain visibility, your nervous system is going to interpret this as a threat, which is the tremendous issue if you're looking to grow in a highly aligned way, right? So basically, this creates a baseline and underlying belief of the higher I go, the harder I have to work in order to not lose it. Now, add this into the fact that this is what you are taught in corporate America. This is what you are taught in school. This is what you are taught in entrepreneur land and business world, right? Is like, you better go and you better work your butt off so that no one takes it away. And then all of a sudden someone on a podcast or on a book or whatever is like, actually, I want you to like take a chill pill and relax. Like, okay. Yeah, no, it's just not going to happen. Not if that is your underlying baseline, right? Not if that is your unconscious driver that is happening here. And we have to understand that if we want to rewire that and we really want to pull ourselves into a grounded and sustainable alignment for 2026. Okay. So again, acknowledge that this is a childhood pattern. And I have a whole process around knowing when to lean in, when to lean out, when something in your nervous system is ready to be purged, right? I call this the up and out method, but it's important to know that associating worth and performance, really melding these two, is a childhood pattern, right? It doesn't hold nuance. It doesn't hold any ability to tolerate abstract thought. Therefore, there's a younger piece of you that's online and is driving, is making those decisions. Another way to think about this is it's like your limbic system, which is in charge of keeping you safe from threat, right? If a bear is coming, your limbic system kicks on and like, thank God you're going to run really fast, hopefully, or not. And like, this is the part that is driving. We don't want that part driving and making our goals and our revenue forecast, like whatever, right? Like you don't want that in your business. It's not going to be effective. You also want to understand there's probably this belief that self-abandonment, so putting yourself at the bottom of your to-do list saying, I really need to rest, I really need to slow down, but I'm not going to do it. That is self-abandonment, is disguised as discipline. Right? This is the trend we have seen up until 2025 is push, 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 push. Or we've seen the opposite end where there's a little bit of entitlement happening, right? And here's the other thing I want to prime you with is that a quiet home, silence, is going to make you want to light yourself on fire at first. It's not going to feel good. It is not this little hot girl moment of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to put on a face mask and it's great. Like, no, if you're new and transitioning, if you are a part of this massive, like the great downshift that we're seeing right now of women who are like, I'm not going to burn out anymore. That means you have been burned out. That means you are primed for burnout to be your baseline and your safety. And if you're going to switch that, transition that, you're going to build a little bit of quiet, a little bit of rest, a little bit of play. It's not going to be easy at first. Okay. The other thing to know here is that your identity has not caught up to your success yet, right? So especially if success happens fast, then your internal infrastructure is going to stay the same. I always say like your mindset, your nervous, all of these things, like I want you to think about yourself as literally a computer. You can rewire, recode, you can get the bugs out, right? That is inherited trauma. You can literally reprogram whatever you want. But if you are someone, a lot of my clients go through this where they achieve success very fast. Whatever that means to them. Usually it has to do with the career. Usually it has to do with early exposure in corporate. Usually it has to do with moving into like, especially like executive leadership, at a very young age, or they are building these monsters of a business and it happens like overnight, right? It happens in like 12 months. We see these massive like jumps from like 6 to 7 figures. That is so much for a nervous system to be able to tolerate. And typically what happens is you're still going through the movements, you're one foot in front of the other, right? But your internal infrastructure, your identity has not caught up. Therefore, it keeps you in this unhealthy loop of push, push, push. I have to work harder in order to stay safe, right? Because at this point, your system is wired for survival, not expansion, because you didn't do this little step by little step by little step, right? This is where we see women getting stuck and frozen in overfunctioning, micromanaging, rescuing, proving themselves. Always doesn't depend. Oh, I have had conversations with women sitting at the gnarliest tables, okay? Like the wildest groups where you're like, for me, I'm sitting and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that is wild. But also, I'm like, yeah, of course you're sitting there. Like, I know you. I've heard you talk. Of course you are sitting there. And yet there's this really intense imposter syndrome that comes and is very sneaky and just follows them and has a seat right next to them, right? This is also what keeps women in continual need to control. All of this ties into rescuer reflex, the powerhouse paradox. And the reality is, if you are living inside of these frameworks, if you're ongoing in these behaviors, these patterns, and if you are not ready to actually tolerate the consequences that comes with stepping out of them, then honestly, like you're not ready to step into full alignment. You might want the Instagram version. You might want the cutie patootie, like, oh my God, look at me, I'm so healed version. But like, you're not ready to tolerate what that actually entails and means, because it's a grind of a process, right? So really noticing, like, I almost want you to write down those like symptoms, right? So over-functioning, micromanaging, rescuing, proving, I think I said that one twice, but I stand by that, and needing control. I want you to go down and be like, click, 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 like which ones are resonating with you. And I want you to notice, like, physically, sensation wise, what is happening in your body as I'm reading through that list, as you are looking at it. So maybe you do need a journal. Sorry. A crazy moment is maybe over and like class is now in session, but no, I maybe stand by that. But I'm like, we could do this over a cup of hot chocolate, right? We're friends. I want you to notice what is happening in your body sensation wise. Is there tightness? Are you like tensing up a little bit? Is there like electricity, maybe some tingles? Are you leaning forward? Like, okay, let's do this. Do you feel a little bit of heat in your face? Like, what physiologically is happening inside of your body as you're moving through this response? Because that is your dysregulation. That is what I want you to be able to sit with and regulate through before you touch your goals and your projections and all of your fancy dancy dashboards that I keep seeing everyone come out with. Someone give me a dashboard. I probably have several actually. My operations team is going to be like, woman, you have like 5. She's going to get on to me. I keep seeing dashboards everywhere right now. But here's the point. I want you to regulate before you actually move into setting your goals. Okay. So we have to acknowledge there's some anxiety here as we are thinking about making this cutie patootie little transition for our identity, right? And for our goals and whatever, because the reality is there's consequences with every decision that you make, whether you decide to stay in the land of burnout or you decide to move on to like aligned powerhouse island, right? There are consequences for both of those things. And I think that we are at a very unique moment in society where there's a massive shift of women who are willing to accept the consequences that come with building a life that is more aligned in leadership and at home. Okay. So again, our goal here is to regulate. Now, I want you, like if we're doing this real time, I want you to write down your goals. And then I want you to get really, really honest. How is there insidious little nuggets of anxiety or dysregulation showing up in your 2026 goals? Okay. For example, do you have fear of setting bigger revenue goals because you don't know what it's going to take, or vice versa, right? Are you setting bigger revenue goals because you fear slowing down? Or can you tolerate the idea that perhaps we can have both? Perhaps we can slow down. We can have a breath. We can focus on ourselves. And I can also set a bigger revenue goal. Are you creating rigid routines because rest feels unsafe? Right? Or are you simply inserting and saying, hey, these are some things that I would like to add. I do really well. And I'm like this. I do really well with the system, a set of steps, a schedule. So here's my schedule. And I'm not going to worry about saying I need to hit this 80% of the time, whatever. Right? Are you mapping content strategies from fear of invisibility? So are you chasing the clicks? Are you, rather than thinking about what is on your heart, how does it need to come out? How is it going to fuel marketing? How is it going to serve my audience? Are you buried in trends and what is big right now, right? And really potentially like losing sight of your actual content and the message that you're trying to put out there. Are you making partnerships or even parenting goals from guilt instead of clarity? This is so huge for women. Oh my gosh, especially mothers, right? But one thing I do with my kids is once a quarter, we have 1 days, and I schedule those out ahead of time because it's something I prioritize and I value. But initially when I had this goal and this idea, it was, I wanted a one-to-one date once a month. And I thought that was feasible for my current support system, business, just reality, right? And the reality is that was absolutely not true. And so needing to adjust and rather than compensate was so important as I was really looking at my goals, specifically around parenting, right? As I was looking at 2026, right? So if you're kind of sitting here and you're kind of like, okay, cool. I struggle with all of this. I'm doing all of this, whatever. Here's the mindset I want you to take away. Here's the mindset I want you to have. And I want you to anchor into it. Okay. You are allowed to feel safe and even joy before you have quote unquote earned it. Safety is not a reward for performance. You are allowed to feel content and joy and safety within your body, knowing that you are cared for without having to work for it. Right? We really want to break apart this childhood belief that has melded these two together. I also want you to get into the mindset of safety is a physiological state. It's not an achievement badge. It is not, you have to have a certain list in order to hit it. You can actually find safety within your body at any moment. So for example, right now in my body, I'm noticing that I'm really thirsty. So I'm going to have a drink, right? And I don't know if that creates tremendous safety within myself, but I will tell you what it does. It kind of does, right? Because my body was sending me cues. You're thirsty. You're thirsty. You're thirsty. You're getting a little bit hungry. And I wasn't doing anything about it. I was sitting here and I was yapping, even though I literally showed up with 3 different drinks for this moment. I was prepared, right? And I was ignoring it. So what it does do is it communicates to my body, hey, you are safe to send me cues about what you need because I will listen. Strong say, do correspondence is critical whenever it comes to parenting either children or yourself. Okay. Here's what I want you to keep in mind is that your 2026 results, what we actually see with these numbers that we're setting right now in 2025, they are only going to shift. If the nervous system that you walk into the year with is regulated enough for you to hold that desire, that goal, that capacity, you have to have capacity for growth. You have to have capacity for recalibration. If it's reorienting with goals, right? Reassessing what is it that I actually want this year. So again, your 3-part pre-goal process to regulate yourself into clarity and alignment is first, I want you to regulate first. This is literally just noticing what is happening inside my body and then getting curious, right? Am I choosing this goal from pressure or desire? Am I in a protector mode or leader mode, vision CEO mode, right? And what do I need in my body real time right now that I can actually give myself? Okay. So body scan, notice the sensations, and then you're making meaning of it. When you do this, your nervous system is going to go from the tension and anxiety that it felt before, and it's going to calm down just a little bit. Another tactic, another tool that I give to my clients is notice the sensation, give it a color and focus on it. And then if you want to get into it, you can talk with it. You can be like, hey girl, what do you need? You want to take up some space? Do you want to move? Do you want to this? Do you want to that? Or we can just give it a color and we can practice breathing it out through our mouths. That's one that my daughter and I use a ton right now, right? She's like, my sadness is red. And I ask her, do you want to blow it out? Do you want to sit with it? What's it telling you? And she gives me a whole story. And then eventually you hear her and she starts breathing it out, right? All of these are ways to help regulate your nervous system. The second is I want you to reveal the truth. I want you to actually name the fear that is behind this goal. Okay. So I want to scale because I am afraid of being irrelevant. And that is what everyone's doing right now. Everyone's talking about scaling, right? It's like super sexy on paper until you do it way too fast. Yes, I'm speaking from experience. Or I want to fix my marriage because I'm tired of carrying the emotional load alone, right? This isn't working anymore. I want to get healthy, whatever that means, because I'm terrified of slowing down. I don't want to accept that my body has changed. When you are able to name what is happening behind this goal, it's going to allow you to further reevaluate, does this goal actually make sense for me? Is this something that actually has a place in my business goals, right? Is this something that actually needs to be impacting my career? Or is it something that I just need to go sit with and tend to and spend a little bit of time with, right? And then if you're noticing that there is some fear there, I want you then to rewrite it from safety. So asking the question, like, what would I build if there was nothing threatening me? And then what I tell people, right, is because like the reality is we live in a capitalist society. Like you need to make money, right? Most people, especially if you're listening to this, you have to make a living. You have to take care of yourself. Those are the realities that we are in. But what you can do is take the fear component out of the goal by acknowledging where it is. And then you can allow yourself to dream a little bit. Here's what I would do if I could do anything. And then maybe you can bring them together a little bit. Okay, to really come up with a grounded, realistic goal that you're not going to be sitting in the same spot in 2026 and be like, dang, what the heck did I do? Right? Or fueling this idea of I'm never enough or whatever it is, right? Because when you ask yourself, what would I do if I could do anything without fear of threat? This is where your boundaries can start to shift. This is where your identity gets to become a little bit more fluid. You can dream up different business goals, different relationship goals, right? And I want to leave you with a few just like tactical, here's what it looks on my end, looks like on my end. And y'all let me know. We're experimenting with podcast content over here. Let me know. Do you like hearing this or do you not? But like, here's what is on my 2026 goal list. I'm not going to go through business. Just my business is like in really big flux. And I'm actually being very intentional about not setting goals for 2026. No, you know what? That's a lie. One of my goals is to run all 6 retreats at whatever capacity they're supposed to run at, but I would like to run all 6, right? So at the time of this recording, 1 is booked. We've got 5 left. I've got like 3, 4 women who are in the process of, we're in the middle of their retreat audits to see if they're going to qualify to be able to come and do the retreat. But like, so that is a goal, right? But honestly, I'm in like such big transition with my business right now. I'm very intentionally allowing it to get quiet. And I'm very intentionally moving out of this place of push, 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 right? But I can tell you for my kiddos, one of the goals I have is a 1-to-1 date once a quarter. I already have those planned out on the docket. They're already with dates. Those are protected days and times because that's 2 days a quarter that I will take out for them. And we would like to be able to take them on 2 trips next year. So that's like family parenting goals, if you will, just because they're so young, they're so little, their brains are so malleable. We're really prioritizing the richness of experiences rather than like the cost of them and one-on-one time where we're able to give it. I can tell you for myself, I'm setting a goal of getting back to body work once a month. This is something that's like fluctuated over my pregnancies. And then similarly in my marriage, it's very focused around 1-to-1 time. We are in a season as a young family where we're together often, but we're also very busy and we're kind of doing lots of like man-to-man combat or like hot potatoing the kids back and forth every now and then. And so for me, what would feel like success is if I were able to schedule and hold space for these 1-to-1 pockets of time and just do it good enough, right? Like that. And that, like to me right now in the season that I'm in, those goals feel very aligned and I'm not looking to create 10 of them, right? I'm just looking to maybe do like 2 or 1 per category. And that feels good enough. And yours is going to be different, right? So here's what I really want to anchor you in as we wrap this up is that your success does not require you to push It doesn't require pressure. In fact, it is the exact opposite of that. But in order to do that, you have to build capacity. It's not as easy as like, poof, I'm going to get more aligned this year. Like, let me know how that goes. And if you can do it that easy, then you should call me. Okay. I want you to keep in mind that your body is allowed to feel safe. It's allowed to relax. It's allowed to soften within the life that you have built as is. I want you to really anchor into the fact that like rest, which I hope you're doing right now, if we're chatting by the Christmas tree, I want you to remember that rest is not a regression. It's not a step back. It's not a failure, right? Like it is actually very strategic in terms of being able to do more, to be honest. But like it is something that you are divinely entitled to, is my belief. I also want you to remember that you can create safety, ease, joy, contentment at any time because it comes from you internally. It does not come from hitting your next KPI. It doesn't come from your performance. It doesn't come from getting your to-do list done. It comes when you start to listen to yourself over and over and over again. And it can be as simple as taking a sip of water while you're recording a podcast. It doesn't have to be these big, fancy, blown up things. It can quite literally be, how am I listening to myself and honoring where I'm at today? So I hope that today's episode was helpful. I am going to drop a link in the notes to schedule a retreat readiness audit in case you're interested. I'm going to do 2 links actually. So maybe 3, maybe we'll get crazy. 1 is to join my newsletter. Newsletter is where I leave even more behind the scenes, ideas, stories, all of these things. Second, I'm going to leave is a link for my retreat readiness audit. So my audits are a 5-figure investment for a 2-3 day event retreat where we are resetting your nervous system capacity and truly allowing you to build, like it is putting years of therapy and peak performance coaching into a weekend. Okay. But because of this, again, I'm a very controlling person. I know who's going to benefit. I know what kind of results I'm going to be able to get you. And I have to make sure that this is the right container for you. So it's a 2-part process where we are going to move through this audit and see whether or not you qualify for this experience. If this is something that you want to get in on 2026, this is the only way to work with me. And so I'm going to drop the link in the show notes for you to schedule that audit today. It's literally just a call. There's no pressure, but we have to make sure that it is the right fit before I am open to opening up that container. Third freebie I'm going to offer and share is Dr. Brittany AI. Now, Dr. Brittany AI has been trained on all of my frameworks, my tone, all of the things. She's always evolving, but it's like having me essentially like in your pocket. Now, she is not a substitute for therapy. She's not a substitute for any kind of medical advice. She does not provide that, but she will give you real-time clarity on where you're getting stuck, why you're getting stuck. And she's trained on my stuff. So she's going to give you like real time. What would I be telling you to do potentially, like within reason? Okay, guys. Like real time, right? She can help you regulate real time. She can help you get clear real time. And I'm just like so excited to share her with my audience if you are here and you are listening. So all 3 of those freebies will be down in the show notes. And I hope that you found today immensely helpful. If you did, don't forget, come and like chat with me on Instagram. I love me a good DM. If you've ever interacted with me over there, you know that I love to send I sound like mini podcasts to people. I'm like, hi, you look fun. But like, I love when people come and they share and they chat over there. Okay. That is all for today. And I will see you on the next one. Alrighty, friend, that is all for today's episode of the Aligned Powerhouse podcast. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And do me a favor, if this episode resonated, I want you to share it with another powerhouse woman in your life who is ready to lead and love from a place of self-trust. And don't forget to follow, subscribe, and leave a quick rating or review. It really does help more women find this work. New episodes drop every week. Until then, lead with self-trust and let yourself be seen.